Hey everyone, it's Selena and this is Closet Conference. I hope your week was blessed, and the last 2 weeks, I know that we all talked about trauma and childhood trauma and how to grow from it and not let us allow our trauma to take over our lives. And I ended last week's episode talking about how one of my methods of learning how to overcome my past trauma was finding my spiritual path. So I was thinking, last week I talked about just knowing that there is something spiritually that is bigger than you, bigger than your trauma, something bigger that gives your body a sense of peace. And of course, in the moment, it doesn't feel like peace. In the moment, it feels like your entire world is crashing down on your shoulders and there is nothing that you can do about it to stop it. But there is something that I learned from this little lady named Cheryl. Miss Cheryl was a little old lady who rode a bike around my old job in Georgia, and she would stop in and say hello most days, and we would sit outside and talk on my break and just talk about everything and anything. Miss Cheryl became a very good friend of mine, and one day, my life flashed before my eyes. Literally. I was in a car accident, December 17th, 2017, and I was T-boned by a pickup truck where my car spun around 3 times and hit a telephone pole. My best friend at the time was in the passenger seat, and my son, he was 1 year old at the time, and he was in the back seat asleep in his car seat. I woke up after being knocked out from my head hitting the steering wheel. My son was screaming in the back. My hearing was muffled and there was smoke everywhere. I rolled out of my car, crawled around to the passenger backside, and my son's door was smashed in and it just would not open. I let out this screeching scream and took all of my strength to snatch open my son's door. I was finally able to get it open and get him out, and then I held on to him while laying in the middle of the street. It was raining and I lost consciousness again. This car accident left a rippling effect of downward spiral after that. I remember calling my manager, who was also my cousin, crying and telling her that I had just gotten into a car accident. I had just gotten paid, and instead of me paying my rent, I used the money for a cab. And every day for the rest of the week, I would take my son to his daycare and I would go to work, and then from work I would go back to the daycare and to go back home. This was, again, in 2017, and I didn't know about any of the Ubers and Lyfts and such back then. So I was spending over $50 every day just to make it to work and back home. No one offered me help, and because now I was without a car, I was also deemed unreliable. And after a week of torture and spending all of my money, to my surprise, I was fired for false accusations of me stealing money, which later I found out that it was my cousin's daughter who had set out an IOU, but the store was audited by the area manager, and I had to be blamed because somebody had to go. After I lost that job, which I had been working there for 3 years as a manager right out of high school, I was unable to pay for my rent. I was unable to get a new car. I was unable to pay for my food or get to a grocery store. I was down so bad that I didn't think that I would ever get up. I remember staying awake at all hours, watching the bills just pile up, and then soon enough, my power was shut off. And here I was in this house alone with my 1-year-old baby with nothing. No money saved, no money to live on, and I had no idea what was going to happen to me. Thank God my landlord was an angel, because that man allowed me to live rent-free for almost an entire 6 months because he felt bad for me. I was able to gain another job and everything seemed like it was going to be coming back together, but I used my income tax money to get another car and to pay off some of the debt that I owed. And I was working this office job as a fraud analyst in one of my most respectable companies in Georgia. I felt like everything was starting to come back together, but then I lost that job too. I got too comfortable in the idea of how I got that job. See, the people who hired me pretty much owned the company, and they were kind of a part of the family. But once my boss knew who I knew, she said everyone was trying to get rid of me because, and I quote, they had to walk around on eggshells because I knew the top dogs. After I lost that job, I pretty much lost my faith. I lost almost my life. I debated suicide for a long time, but the smile on that little boy's face would not allow me to give up. I remember catching a bus and going back to my old job, and I remember sitting outside of the restaurant across the street from my old job, and that little old Miss Cheryl came around the corner singing her little heart out. She looked at me and she grabbed my hand without a word, and she sang to me about the angels. And she said, "Honey, have you ever heard about blind faith?" "Blind faith," I said. "Cheryl, I'm sorry, but I don't have any faith right now. How can I? Do you not see what's going on with me? I'm about to lose my home, my kid. I'm about to lose everything, all because of this wreck. I have lost everything. I'm not of use of any of my friends anymore. And my family doesn't even call me anymore because I can't do anything for them. I don't have anyone." I didn't have anything. And she put her finger up and she said, "Listen, blind faith is when you are at the peak of that mountain and you are looking down, ready to give up. You're ready to jump. And blind faith is knowing that when you step off that ledge and you know by the time you put your foot down, a staircase is going to rise underneath each step that you take, or you're going to sprout wings and fly." At that moment, I cried and I cried and I cried, and she cried with me. And she told me, "You have to keep blind faith no matter what you do or how bad it gets. No matter how many nights that you have to go without food or wonder where the next meal is even going to come from. You have to remember just who you are. Not what this world is showing you, how cruel it can be. There is a purpose in you. And in what you're doing and what you're going through, you will see this is supposed to happen. We don't know why yet, but one day you will. And you will understand why it's so hard right now." And eventually, when things started to get a little better for me, I got that phrase tattooed on my arm, blind faith. And for anyone who asks me, I tell them that story because it truly meant so much to me. I don't think that I could ever forget it. After that time of me feeling so defeated, it took me another 2 years to get myself finally stable. And for another 3 years, it seemed like I was smacked with life again. By that time, I found peace in the pain and I made a way. No, God made a way for me. I was so lost in spirituality when everything was on my shoulders and I didn't know how or what to do. So when I had to go through it again, I knew exactly what to do. Keep faith. Even faith as small as a mustard seed will carry you through an entire war. In 2022, I went through a nasty divorce and I became homeless, once again with my son. We had to live in hotels and barely could get by with food. Some days I had to choose between paying for a room or making sure I had myself something to eat because my son always had something to eat. But God made a way. And I tell this one story to anyone who would listen because it's a true miracle that God gave me. I was still in school when I was homeless and living in the hotel, and I finished my degree as a pharmacy technician. And I remember that day I finished my exiting exam, and in 10 minutes, I had to meet up with someone to sell my laptop just to pay for the hotel room for that night. The next day, I sold my iPhone that I wasn't using, and I sold it. It was a brand new iPhone 12, and I sold it for $250, enough to pay for 3 nights at the hotel and some food. After that, I sold my Apple Watch for exactly $75 to pay for another night. And then I sold this beautiful ring that I had fallen in love with and bought when I had got my income tax money. And then I had nothing left to sell. The next morning, I had just enough rewards points to pay for another night, and I spent the entire night lying awake because I knew that I had no money for the next day to pay for the room. I was texting everyone and calling everyone that I knew, and no one would answer me. No one would answer the phone. I laid there in bed, crying and holding my son and begging God to help me. Time rolled around to about 6 a.m, and then I finally fell asleep. I was startled awake at 10 a.m. with housekeeping knocking on my door, as they done every morning, asking if I was staying another night. I cried silently to her so that my son wouldn't hear me. And I told her, I don't know. She touched my shoulders in empathy, and she said, "You're going to have to talk to the manager. I'll hold off until he comes back, but he's a very understanding man. Just tell him what's going on. If you can get the money in a couple of hours, I'm sure he would let you stay." So I grabbed my phone, and I hoped anyone had texted me back or sent me anything to help with the bill, but there was nothing. I went to go look at my banking app just out of curiosity to see if I had anything. And to my surprise, there was $73.82, the exact amount of money for the hotel room. Where did it come from? God. It was not there when I woke up. It was not there when I went to sleep. It was just not there. There was no record of where it came from. It didn't even have a time on when it was deposited. It was just there. I went downstairs skipping and happy with my son because we paid for the room where I went downstairs skipping and happy with my son, and we paid for the room where I was then told that since I had stayed for so many nights, I got 5 nights free. Listen, if that doesn't tell you that it's God, I don't know what will. As I went back upstairs, one of the neighbors stopped me and asked me if I wanted some food for me and my son. They asked if we wanted a pizza. And then they went and got me and my son a pizza, an entire pizza, and we ate it. I cried happy tears and sad tears because I didn't like the situation that I was in, but then again, I knew that God was there with me. But most of all, I knew that I was a child of God and that He was proving to me that if I trusted in Him, He would make a way. Shortly after that, a friend came to me and told me that I could come and live with her for a while, and for a while that worked out. But the point is that the entire story is that my life has always been up and down, like a roller coaster. And it was my childhood trauma that held me in that mentality. But no matter what, God showed me that He was with me. In the mud, He was with me. In those hotel rooms, He was with me. In the hot days and the cold nights, my God was always with me and protecting me. I know that no matter what, my faith is set on the rock, and there is nothing that will ever change my mind about that, because I am a living and breathing and walking testimony that God loves me if nobody else does. God never abandoned me, even though everyone else did. God showed me that all I truly needed was Him. And He used those people around me to show me that as long as I keep that blind faith, I don't know how, but He will. I don't know when, but He will. With God, all things are possible. And without God, nothing is possible. This has helped me understand that there is an assignment for everything that is bad. God isn't the one punishing us. And I used to think all the time, well, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Why does this have to happen? Did God really have to go so hard for me to learn this lesson? He beat me down to my socks and kept going. But not everything is sent by God. The enemy will track you down and attack you. But as I'm sure you have heard before, God will never bring you to it if He can't bring you through it. Or God gives His toughest battles to the strongest soldiers. But it isn't always the case. God might see the enemy attacking, but let me let you in on a little secret. One of my favorite songs by Elevation Worship says, as well as Genesis 50:20. As for you meant for evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. Or, for layman's terms, God takes what the enemy meant for evil and he turns it for good. The enemy wanted to attack me and shake me to my core, but God said, watch how strong I make her. She is strong enough to break all the generational curses. In every single bad situation that I was put in, I brought somebody with me closer to God. I met several people along the way in those hotel rooms, and when I was going through those rough patches, I would talk about how good God was, even if I fully didn't believe it myself. I told myself if I talk about it enough, then maybe I would believe it. But have you seen a mustard seed lately? My blind faith is my mustard seed. I will go if God is with me. I will do it as long as God is with me. But if I can't bring God with me, I can't go. And I truly believe that everything I have gone through is just my testimony to bring others closer to God. I started this podcast because there is nothing that I haven't gone through or witnessed firsthand myself. I can relate to so many people on so many different things. And I know that I am a child of God. And those who have wronged me, it will be corrected. I remember one of my friends telling another friend of hers while pointing at me saying, that girl right there could be a child of God sitting on my couch. And if I had turned her away, that could have been me turning God himself away. It made me feel so good because I knew that I am a child of God. And I said it proudly. I am a child of God. I can take pride in knowing that he is going to protect me. Now, the story that she was telling is a story that her mother told her about how homeless men would come to her door and ask her for water, and she gave him water every day. The man came back every day asking for water, and each day the man came, he got the water. And she said that one day, when the man came back to ask for water, and she thought about saying no because she was tired of giving away all of her water. And then somehow or another, she didn't have the water herself. I can't remember the story word for word, but like the other story. But the moral of the story is the man who asked for water was just God in disguise, who was asking for water to bless her with more water. And the more she gave, the more that she was blessed. The moment that she decided to be selfish and not give something as simple as water to the man in need, he took it from her altogether. And I believe that if God has a job for us, he will give you everything that you need in that moment to get it done. But also, you cannot expect to just know what God's job for you here on earth is. He can have multiple jobs for you and you only picked up on one, or what your past job for him was. God is way bigger than any of us. Somebody once told me that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. But I said all of that to say that because I focused so deeply on, I know that there was something bigger than me. I know that me believing in my spirituality, me believing that I know that God is there with me. He's down in the dirt with me. He didn't leave me or forsake me. There is a lesson, and no matter how hard it gets, it's going to be a greater outcome on the other side. So yeah, that is all for today, and I really hope that my story and my testimony has touched each and every one of you, and you could see it like I've seen it. I know that I say this every week, but I truly hope that my podcast is a voice to people out there who didn't have a voice. And it doesn't matter to me if I have one listener or if I have 100 listeners. I just want to touch that one person who's listening and feels like they can never do it or they never had anyone on their side. Because now you got me, but you've always had God. You just have to open your eyes and realize that he's always been there through everything. I love you. See you next time.